Guys, I'm Mike Hansen, a career server for 12 years now. On Wednesday, I went to the state capitol to testify in front of representatives and senators regarding Question 4, specifically to restore the tip credit. And over the past few nights, dozens of customers that have seen this on the news have come in asking what the tip credit is and why it's become a big deal. They're curious why hundreds of servers from all over the state have come for the largest turnout that the clerks and committee had ever seen in history to fight against a raise. It doesn't make sense. So I'll explain why it makes sense from our standpoint and leave references at the bottom to support the claims in the description, as well as my email in case anyone has any further questions about this topic. I'd love to clarify. First, for anyone who doesn't know what the tip credit is, Maine's tip credit allowed an employer to pay employees 50% of the standard minimum wage, assuming the rest is made up in tips. If the rest isn't made up in tips, the employer has to pay the rest of that up to minimum wage. They're required by law. The opposition argues that wage theft happens frequently and isn't reported, but in my personal experience, that doesn't happen, and there's simply no evidence to support these claims. In the 12 hours straight of testimony that the committee had to sit and listen to, 12 hours, they didn't produce a single server with an example of one time that they had ever made less than minimum wage. Even if servers weren't included in Question 4, we still would have gotten a direct wage increase to $6 an hour from $3.75, and we're guaranteed $12 an hour anyway by 2020, because that's what the standard minimum wage will be. But forcing the direct wages on employers all the way up to $12 an hour causes significant problems. Simply put, restaurant business plans weren't designed and aren't flexible enough to deal and absorb these significant, unexpected tens of thousands of dollars of extra labor costs every year. Restaurants regularly run on small margins, and many owners are going to have to deal with it by cutting back hours of operation, reducing staff, whether that's front or back of house. It'll adversely affect service both ways, or just replace servers with tablets, as we've seen in some restaurants, and that just removes jobs from our economy entirely. But the other way to offset the labor increase is to increase menu prices, and there's lots of reasons why an owner can't just raise menu prices as much as they want and fix everything. I could do an entirely different piece about that, but basically the more expensive something is, the less people buy of it. That's economics 101. No one would debate that. No one's sensible. If I put a menu next to you with the exact same items, but it's 20 to 40% more expensive, would you order off the cheaper one and tip like usual, or the more expensive one, where you know it's more expensive because your server's making more money, but you're still expected to tip the same? You're paying significantly more for the exact same product, and you know the reason for this is because your server is now making what they're calling a fair wage, and some people will feel inclined to tip less. Some will have to, just from an affordability standpoint. Most people don't have unlimited income. If you spend $10,000 a year going out to eat, it would be at least $12,000 a year under reasonably low projections, and closer to $15,000 if you're still tipping the same as you used to off of these exorbitant menu prices. That's a 50% increase in going out to eat. People will opt for cheaper options like fast food or takeout or cooking at home just to deal with this, which further hurts restaurants. But back to Question 4. The entire reason it included tipped positions was because of the premise that servers in Maine make an average of $9.38 an hour, and many don't even make minimum wage. This is entirely wrong, and I can easily explain why. I have the BLS statistics they use right here. I'll link it at the bottom. This was part of my testimony to the Maine legislator. If you look at it, you'll notice they use the mean income. That's not going to work. They use the median income instead of the mean, which is 23% less than the mean, and not typically used for an average. But they do this to make the issue sound more dire than it actually is. But if you look at the survey, you'll look and see that it says that hosts make more than servers and bartenders. It says that dishwashers make more than servers and bartenders. It says that a bartender helper averages 20 cents more an hour than a bartender. It says that every type of cook, including fast food cooks, make more than servers and bartenders. doesn't take a seasoned veteran with intimate restaurant knowledge to know that's simply not true. Your average McDonald's employee likely doesn't make more than a bartender, and a dishwasher typically doesn't make more than a waitress, ever. Yet these are literally the statistics they've been maintaining as truth for months and months, and the entire reason our jobs were put on the ballot. Some are saying it's the server's fault because they've been cheating the system and not claiming all their tips, and they had this coming. But these statistics aren't based off of any payroll data or W-2s or actual earnings. It's based off of an optional survey, which I have here in my book of much research on this subject. It's based off an optional survey, which has a lot of margin of error. I've read about the scope and procedure, and I've spoken with owners who have filled them out incorrectly. People don't realize there's a difference between pay. I've been paid $3.75 an hour, but I've earned a lot more than that over the years. The 938 statistic is garbage. Go ask anyone you know working at a restaurant. They can confirm this. Front of house employees make more than back of house employees. That's just restaurants 101 if that was a class. Anyone who's worked in a restaurant knows there's a pay disparity typically between the two positions. So to claim that servers make less than minimum wage when we know cooks make at least minimum wage, usually a little bit more, and we know servers make much more than the cooks, it just makes no sense that you're saying servers and bartenders make less than minimum wage, which is illegal. And forcing owners to budget a $1 an hour raise every year to the position that customarily earns the most and has the highest earning ceiling, the fact that we're making an employer give raises to their highest earners is offensive to back of house employees. This change hurts them. If you have to allocate more money to your servers, that takes away from raises and keeping the positions that may really need and deserve it. If anything, I think the kitchen staff should get a forced $1 an hour raise every year. I have a lot of respect for all the hard work they do. But if servers did somehow make $12 an hour plus the same tips as the opposition's claim will happen, then the kitchen needs to make at least $20 an hour or more. Otherwise, you're just going to keep widening that pay disparity between the two. And if tipping did remain the same, I mean, servers would be making more money than ever with how high menu prices would be. The customer would be paying $9 a beer, $20 a burger, and it just doesn't make sense. Obviously, customers will have to go out to eat less or tip less or just go with cheaper options, whether that's eating at home, takeout, fast food, whatever, in light of these new expenses. They'll try pointing to the 7 other states where this was done and the sky isn't falling, but most of these states never had a tip credit to begin with. Comparing us to California makes no sense. They never had one, and their economy is better than most countries. So don't be surprised that their average server income there is higher than a Mainer's. And even a more rural state like Alaska, their median home income is $14,000 more than a Mainer's. So again, people who make more are going to spend more. So it makes sense that an Alaskan server may average more than a Maine server, especially when you're comparing it to the fake $9.38 an hour statistic. Guam has no tip credit, but we don't ever seem to be compared to them. And many don't know about the statistics from places like Seattle, who have raised to $15 an hour for everyone, and now is dealing with restaurant growth growing stagnant. It is 10 times slower in the city of Seattle than the rest of their state. That's a good gauge. You can gauge your city to your state. That's probably a pretty solid comparison, but there's restaurant populations in all these non-tip credit states clamoring for a freeze of wages or a tip credit just because they can't make a profit under their business plans. And they'll say that business owners side with supporting Question 4, and that's true, they do. Many do. But many are just in it for the standard minimum wage increase. In Augusta, I remember one business owner being there on their side regarding the tip credit from the entire state of Maine. He was their first speaker, and he said that his servers made an average of $30 an hour. Their expert witness, Saru Jayaman, apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, was literally a paid lobbyist and an attorney flown in from California. This is their expert witness, who doesn't even live in our state. But she agrees front of house makes significantly more than the back of house, which should immediately invalidate this entire argument they have. She says she wants to level the playing field by paying the front of house less and the back of house more. But she does this under the guise of fair wages for all. Paying servers more hourly will lead to people tipping less. In several restaurants that have been forced to adapt her model of a no-tipping policy, do that because they realize guests won't come in with ridiculously high prices, which you need to cover labor costs. I don't have some intimate, no, I'm not making this up. You can read all about this in her own words in her op-ed titled, "Why Tipping is Wrong." That's what it's called. I'll link to it. I had to pause for a sec just to confirm that I got the name of that. It is called verbatim, "Why Tipping is Wrong." I'll link it at the bottom. This is their expert witness. Apparently because no business owners in Maine could explain to us why removing the tip credit is a good idea. As a person whose income and livelihood is affected by this, I took considerable time doing my own research months ago. And when I found this looked bad, I wanted to find and contact the proponents and explain my findings. I looked it up and noticed the Maine People's Alliance was a group that had spent nearly $1 million to get Question 4 passed. So I thought I'd try contacting them. I originally brought up some of these concerns on their Facebook, but days later I noticed my comments were deleted. I found another article whose headlines said that we were trying to repeal Question 4 entirely and overwrite the standard minimum wage increase. So I commented saying, quote, "Do you understand they are trying to help Maine restaurants by reinstating Maine's tip credit? They are not trying to roll back the minimum wage increase." That was deleted. A couple more educational similar comments and I was blocked entirely. I later found out that dozens of strangers all across Maine had received this exact same treatment, and I have screenshots of their deleted posts to prove it. I thought this suppression and censorship was ridiculous, so I tried to contact the MPA directly about the issue. I called and was told to email their communications directors, Mike Tipping, Andrew Francis, but those emails went completely unanswered, and I went on to leave voicemails. I tried emailing a lead organizer, their political engagement director, their associate director, even their executive director. I tried emailing from different email addresses of mine, and I still couldn't get a response. On March 12th, almost a month ago, I sent an email to every single one of the contacts on the MPA's website, and I did not receive a single response besides an automated out-of-office response to any of it. I joined a Facebook group now with over 5,000 restaurant members, all of us who have very serious concerns, and we can't even get the opposition to open dialogue about this. So you have thousands of workers whose lives are directly affected by this telling you it's wrong. You have the owners agreeing and showing you the numbers and showing you they'll be forced to lay off and cut staff. And then on the other side, you have predominantly paid lobbyists who have never worked in restaurants, don't own any, and have no idea about how one's run. You have the experts from every industry that forecast Maine's economy, the Tourism Association, the Retail Association, the innkeepers, the bankers, all telling you that it's going to be very bad and will cause restaurants to close. No one knows about restaurant margins better than bankers. It makes no sense for anyone to be against the tip credit, and when we can't even get a response, that's just the most frustrating thing. If there is a way to make these business plans viable, I'm sure every owner would love to hear it. So please, if you watched this video, find out for yourself what your peers actually think about this issue. Go to your favorite restaurant, ask them, ask servers if they'd rather have $12 an hour or half of that plus tips. Anyone needs anything clarified further, I'd be happy to respond to comments, emails. If anyone from the MPA would like to start responding, my email's below. I'm certainly open to discussing this. I'm sure your organization has done great things for Mainers, but on this you are alienating almost every single restaurant worker in Maine by not listening to us and our concerns. I'd love to hear from you and your propositions on how restaurants can deal with several of these concerns. Thanks for watching.